Hi everyone, it's Miss Brittany from the Clinton-Macomb Public Library. I'm here for another segment of Kitchen Science. Today we're going to be doing some really fun science. We're going to start with seeing what happens when we put Ivory soap in the microwave. And then we're going to move on to something really fun that we're going to do with milk. For this experiment, you're going to need a plate of some sort. I'm just using a slightly larger serving tray that has a lip on it. You're going to need some liquid food coloring. You're going to need a couple of cotton balls in a container to put them in. Dish soap, I think I already said milk. And then for our last experiment of the day, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need some hydrogen peroxide. I am using 3%. I've heard 6% works better, but more than likely what you have is 3%. And it still works cool, so don't worry about that. You're going to need some active dry yeast. You're going to need warm water. And then you're going to need some kind of container. I am using a vase because it's what I had most handy. If you have a pop bottle or something along those lines and something to put it, like a filter to put it in, that's going to work just fine too. But let's start with our first science experiment. And if you want to, you can go on to our comments and comment what you think will happen when I put this Ivory soap in the microwave. So let's go ahead. I've unwrapped it already. I'm going to pop it in my microwave. We're going to do it for 1 minute, and I'm just going to kind of observe it to see if we need to take it out a little bit sooner. So again, if you want to comment, what do you think is going to happen? If you just want to talk about it with whoever you're doing these science experiments, if you're following along at home, this is a great time. Put it on a plate, throw it in the microwave with it. It's really cool to see what comes out of this. And you can already see some reactions starting. So if you can't see that at home, we're going to pull this plate right out of the microwave and we're going to find out what it looks like. I think we're going to give it another 10 or so seconds in there. So far we're at 35 seconds. And I think I'm going to call it good at 40 seconds. And we're going to pull out our Ivory soap to see what it changed into. So you can see that the entire texture of this soap has changed and it has expanded. And what has caused this is the heating of the water inside of the soap. So water vapors forming bubbles trapped inside of this expand. And actually, I might have wanted to keep it in for there for a little bit longer. We still have this soap at the base. So maybe put it in for that full minute. But it's really cool when it comes out. It's got this new fluffy texture and it kind of crumbles in your hand. And it's just very different from how it started. But something really cool about Ivory soap is that you can still use it as real soap. And you can wash your hands with this when you're finished with your science experiment. So that's Ivory soap. I don't think it works with other bars of soap, but if you have one and you're trying it, you can tell us in the comments if they work for you. All right, our next experiment, we are going to do some color, we'll call it color expansion. For this, I am using 1% milk. I think any milk really works as long as it has some fat in it. And we are going to go ahead and I'm just going to pour this so that it covers the bottom and then a little bit. You don't need too much in here. Again, if you're using a plate, that's gonna work totally fine. And then I'm gonna take my dish soap and my little ramekin with a couple of cotton balls in there. And I'm gonna just go ahead and cover it completely with soap. Does not matter what kind of dish soap you use. I'm using just a clear one. And then finally, I'm gonna go ahead and take my liquid food coloring. I have not tried this with gel. I've only tried it with liquid, so I don't know if it works with any other kind of food coloring. And I'm just going to randomly put drops of color in there at random sections. You can put a few if you want. I've got some really cool neon colors. We're going to put a little bit of blue in there too. Okay. Now you're going to guess what happens when I put this cotton ball up to this milk with this food coloring in it. So if you're following along on comments, please go ahead and comment what you think is going to happen. And so like I said, I covered this with dish soap. I don't know if you can really see it very well because it's a clear dish soap. You can use tongs or you can use tweezers. I'm just going to use my fingers because I really don't mind. I kind of wish I would have went with tongs now. But I'm going to take it. And we're going to put it close. I think I had a little bit too much dripping and it fell right in there. But as you can see, the moment that dish soap has that reaction with it, it's going to cause all of those colors to expand. The reason for this is because when you add the soap to the milk, it's going to reduce the surface tension of this. And as the milk, as it reaches the fat, the dish soap reaches the fat, it reacts to it. And this interaction causes the fat particles to move and create this really cool swirl of color that we see here. I wish I would have used tweezers, so maybe grab some tongs if you're doing this on your own. Okay, let's clear this off because I think our third experiment is probably our most fun of the day. So I'm just gonna move these when I'm not using out of the way. I'm gonna keep the dish soap and the food coloring. I'm just gonna get rid of everything else. Now, if you're doing this experiment at home, I do recommend that you put whatever you're filling on a cooking sheet or something like that, or a cleanable surface, because you will see why once we do this experiment, why you are going to want to do that. But I don't want a big cleanup, so that's what I'm going to do. But before I get started with anything else, I'm going to get my yeast ready. So I'm using 3 packets of dry yeast. If you have a big bag of it, 1 tablespoon is going to do just fine for this. And I'm going to put 1 packet in each of my containers. I'm doing 3. You might be doing just 1 at home, and that's totally fine. I'm going to get this ready. And then if you want to start getting some warm water prepped for yours, we're going to make sure we're adding warm water to this yeast so that we can activate it and get our reaction started. So I'm going to do this one at a time because I want to make sure it gets mixed really well. So I already poured a little bit of warm water in this before we started. And I'm just going to add enough to where it's going to cover. And like I said, I'm doing it one at a time. I'm going to mix it with my spoon until it's good to go. You don't really want any big chunks, so if you're finding that it's getting chunky like mine is, you might want to add just a little bit more warm water to it. Just pop a little bit more. Then I'm going to move on to my next one. Get this one good to go. If you're doing this at home, like I said, just a tablespoon. And this one seemed to work a little bit better, so that looks like it's the magic amount of water. And then I'm going to do my next one. Mix, mix, mix. All right, so these are ready. We're just going to leave them to sit while we're filling up our containers. And for this, like I said before, you're going to want at least, ideally you would have 6% peroxide. I only have 3, so my reaction is not going to be quite as big. But if you do have 6% peroxide, you want to be careful when this experiment's over when you touch it, because it can cause a little bit of irritation in your skin. If you're using 3%, you probably won't see this. Now, what we're making is called elephant toothpaste. But don't be fooled. Just because it has the word toothpaste in it does not mean that we can eat it. So we're going to want to make sure that none of this ever touches our mouth, even if it looks really, really cool. So I'm going to put a 1/2 cup peroxide in each of my containers. And you're going to do the same if you're following along. Or if you're just doing one, that's totally fine. Just do it in one of your containers. And then I'm going to take 1 tablespoon, or I'm using actually a 1/16 cup. So that works. It's the same size as a tablespoon. So either a tablespoon or 1/16. And I'm going to take my same dish soap I used for the last one, and I'm going to add it into this peroxide. Okay, and then you're going to take your favorite food coloring, and you're going to go ahead and just throw about 10 drops of food coloring in there. And you can also do multiple colors if you just ring it on the side. I have found these vases are not the best to do multiple colors with, but maybe if you're using a pop can, you can. Should be good. And then our last color, we'll use green. And sometimes I know it's hard to find liquid food coloring. I find that Kroger almost always has it. Just go ahead and mix that food coloring up a little bit, just so it gets all of that peroxide. All right, now it's time to add our yeast, which is going to work as our catalyst. We're going to add our yeast straight into this, and I'm just going to mix it one more time, make sure it's good and mixed. And we're going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to start with my first 2 and move on to my next. All right, you guys ready? What do you think is going to happen? Make your prediction in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So again, if you're using 6%, you might have seen a little bit of a bigger reaction, but either way, we have made some pretty cool looking elephant toothpaste. So let's talk about what's happening in this reaction. Like I said before, yeast is working at our catalyst, and what a catalyst does is it speeds up our reaction. So if what we're doing here is we're breaking down the oxygen from the hydrogen peroxide. But because we have a catalyst, it does it quick, which is why we see so many bubbles popping up to it. And this is also creating an exothermic reaction because it actually created heat while we were doing this. So this is elephant toothpaste. It's really fun. And now you see why we put this tray under here. So again, if you're going to try this at home, or maybe you did it along with me, it's lots of fun to do. Just make sure that you're being safe with peroxide, because depending on what percentage it is, it can cause some irritation on your skin. And whatever you do not eat this, okay? All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this month's Kitchen Science. For more programs, please visit cnpl.org, click on our virtual tab, and see what we have to offer virtually. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day.